If you watched Daredevil, Born Again on Disney+, you probably got chills from the villain who painted murals using human blood. Yep, we're talking about Muse, or Muso in the Portuguese version, a twisted artist responsible for brutal murders, who made a haunting appearance in the series, but had already been leaving a trail of horror in the comics for years. Muse is Vincent van Gogh, a serial killer obsessed with turning murder into art. He sees his victims as sculpting materials, using blood, flesh, and bones to create grotesque masterpieces on the streets of New York. It's not just cruelty to him, it's pure inspiration. He first appeared in Daredevil, Volume 5, Number 1, 2015, written by Charles Soule with art by Ron Garney. And ever since, he's become one of the most disturbing villains of Daredevil's modern era. Muse doesn't have superpowers, but makes up for it with a brilliant and deranged mind, terrifying physical agility and stealth, and a cold-bloodedness that makes him completely unpredictable. His pieces are displayed in public places, almost like exhibitions, and each sculpture is made from real victims, all presented with a theatrical, almost ritualistic aesthetic. In the comics, his main target is Daredevil, but he also has intense run-ins with Blindspot, Sam Chung. In one of the most shocking scenes, Muse rips out Blindspot's eyes to complete one of his pieces. That gives you a clear idea of how cold and artistic his psychopathy really is. He doesn't want power or control, just immortality through the horror of his art. In the comics, Muse is a twisted critique of the modern art world. He believes people no longer value true art, so he elevates human suffering into the highest form of aesthetic experience. His installations resemble contemporary museum exhibits, except they're made from human body parts. Unlike villains like Bullseye, who kill for pleasure or efficiency, Muse kills with creative intent. His victims are chosen, positioned, and displayed with a purpose. He doesn't hide his crimes. He exhibits them like an open-air gallery. This makes him more of a psychological villain, almost theatrical, as if every crime were a performance piece. Muse's creation clearly draws from influences like Francis Bacon, with his grotesque paintings and distorted human forms, and performance art movements from the 1970s, where artists use their own bodies, pain, and blood as part of the art. Muse in Daredevil, Born Again starts off in the shadows, almost like a ghost. He's the one behind the disturbing murals popping up across the city, depicting iconic figures like Kingpin, White Tiger, and the Punisher. Commissioner Gallo reveals that the police estimate at least 60 people were killed by Muse to create his art. That's when the show hits us with the true weight of the villain. When Kingpin, Wilson Fisk, finds out someone's using his image in blood-soaked murals, he goes all in with drastic measures. The show once again dives into its critique of police brutality, introducing a task force made up of violent, out-of-control individuals, including Punisher fanatics and Powell, the guy who locked up Hector. This side plot shows just how deeply Muse's actions shake up the criminal underworld of New York, reigniting the chaos Daredevil fought so hard to suppress. The first one to cross paths with Muse is Angela, Hector's niece. In the comics, she eventually takes on the mantle of White Tiger, and the show drops strong hints that she's heading in that direction. She uncovers Muse's hideout in an abandoned subway station, following a tip from her uncle, but everything happens almost too quickly, making the tension hit hard and fast. When she disappears, Matt Murdock immediately knows what's going on, and it becomes the catalyst that pulls him back into the Daredevil suit. Not for revenge, but to save someone. Episode 6 of Daredevil, Born Again brings us an intense showdown between Matt Murdock and Muse, marking the hero's official return to the red suit. The fight is loaded with tension, filmed with a raw, gritty style and an almost ritualistic tone, perfectly matching the dark aesthetic of the villain. Muse proves to be agile, violent, and completely immersed in his twisted artistic vision. Matt, on the other hand, is driven purely by the need to save Angela, not vengeance. And that's key. He defeats the villain without crossing his moral line, even when facing a killer who slaughtered dozens just to paint with blood. It's just the beginning. At the end of the fight, Muse manages to escape, and that changes everything. The series isn't over yet. With at least 3 more episodes to go, his return isn't just possible, it's highly likely. This type of villain doesn't act on impulse. He plans, he watches, and he turns chaos into spectacle. With his identity still mostly unexplored and his obsession with artistic impact, Muse could easily return with new pieces, maybe even more brutal than before. In the next episodes, it's very possible he might plan a final masterpiece involving Matt or Fisk, target public figures or heroes to maximize his impact, or even try to become an urban icon of terror, elevating his art to cult-like levels. Either way, his presence isn't gone. It's just on pause, like an artist waiting for the perfect moment to unveil his next exhibit. What makes Muse particularly provocative is how he operates almost outside the plot. Unlike Fisk, who manipulates systems of power, or villains who face heroes head-on, Muse watches. He acts while others clash, as if he's documenting the decay of Hell's Kitchen through his art. This casts him as a twisted chronicler of urban collapse, almost like a war artist, capturing the death of hope in the subtext of his macabre murals. The complete lack of personal motivation, no desire for money, revenge, or status, makes it clear that Muse operates from a place of pure existential void. And that's what makes him so terrifying. The ability to act with absolute coldness, without emotion, remorse, or even a craving for redemption. He is the embodiment of meaninglessness, and because of that, he forces those around him, especially Matt, to confront their own ethical limits. Even with limited screen time so far, Muse has already triggered powerful reactions. He made Matt suit up as Daredevil again, not out of rage or justice, but out of empathy, trying to save Angela. He destabilized the order Fisk was trying to restore, pushing the Kingpin to respond with brutality. He exposed the fragility of a police force that can't even comprehend, let alone control, a threat like this. He doesn't dominate the narrative, he disrupts it. Deep down, Muse represents what the institutions refuse to see. What happens when human suffering becomes just background noise and no one reacts anymore. He paints with blood because he knows it's the only language left that still shocks people. In that sense, he becomes a symbol of collective numbness, the whatever attitude spreading through the streets of New York. Why he needs to return, and he will. The show's decision to leave him alive and on the run is no accident. Muse isn't just a monster to be taken down, he's a force that resurfaces whenever the system fails again. He could return, bolder than before, with new targets, or even more conceptual, as a mentor to other twisted artists or the inspiration behind an urban cult. And maybe the creepiest part, he doesn't even need to be on screen to influence things. Just the fear of his return is enough to change everyone's behavior. So, what did you think about diving deeper into Muse, that bizarre villain literally leaving his mark on the Daredevil universe? If you're also convinced he's coming back stronger in the next episodes, drop a comment with your theories on what's coming next. And if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss any breakdowns, theories, or cool facts about your favorite movies and series.